Buongiorno Santità, buongiorno a tutti, grazie di averci raggiunto qua dietro per un incontro con lei, grazie per questi giorni che abbiamo potuto trascorrere seguendo il viaggio nei due paesi che ha visitato, per quest'ultimo paese il Libano. Ci sono un po' di domande da parte dei giornalisti, però prima volevo dire una cosa, c'è una giornalista che ha lavorato per molti anni seguendo la Santa Sede, il Vaticano e il Papa, e che da dicembre va in pensione. Cindy Wooden, che lavora con la CNN. E il rapporto è stato prezioso e amichevole per tutti questi anni, quindi comunque invece le domande saranno la prima da parte di una giornalista libanese, se non vuole dire una parola lei prima.
Solo una parola, buongiorno a tutti. Innanzitutto voglio dire grazie a tutti voi che avete lavorato tanto e vorrei che trasmettano questo messaggio anche ad altri giornalisti, sia in Turchia, in Libano, tanti che hanno lavorato per comunicare gli importanti messaggi di questo viaggio. Allora, grazie a voi. Anche voi tutti meritate un applauso forte per il vostro lavoro. Grazie, grazie.
Allora, la prima domanda è di Joseph Al-Shak della televisione pubblica libanese.
First of all, thank you so much for granting us this opportunity as the only Lebanese media to accompany you on your first foreign trip. Before my question, this is the gift from the LBCI Lebanon family. It was drawn live on TV while you were moving from one stop to the other. This is you, and these are the different stops. You can see Our Lady of Lebanon, Saint Charbel, the Beirut port, every stop, every notable stop. So really, we thank you so much for blessing us with this opportunity. On the back, you can find a heartfelt appreciation by our chairman of the board and his wife, Pierre and Randa Daher. They are really thankful for this opportunity. It was painted live on air while you were moving from one stop to the other. Back to my question, Your Holiness. You are an American Pope leading a peace process. You're on a peace mission in the region. My question is, will you use your connections with President Donald Trump, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and you've stated on the plane before that the Vatican is friends with Israel. Will you raise the need to halt Israeli aggressions against Lebanon? And is sustainable peace achievable in the region?
First of all, yes, I believe sustainable peace is achievable. I think that when we talk about hope and we talk about peace and we look to the future, we do so because I believe it is possible that peace once again come to the region, come to your country, to Lebanon. In fact, I've already, in a very small way, begun a few conversations with some of the leaders of places that you have mentioned, and I would intend to continue to do that personally or through the Holy See, because the fact is that we do have diplomatic relationships with most of the countries through the region, and it would be our hope certainly to continue to raise that call for peace that I spoke of at the very end of the Mass today.
La prossima domanda è di Imad Atrash dei Sky News Arabia.
Santità, sono libanese, quindi parlo in italiano, se mi permette. Santità, nel suo ultimo discorso, che credo sia molto importante, c'era un chiaro messaggio per le autorità libanesi per negoziare, quindi negoziare, dialogare, costruisce. Il Vaticano farà qualcosa di concreto in questo senso. Poi ieri sera lei ha visto anche un esponente sciita, prima del suo viaggio Hezbollah gli aveva mandato un messaggio, non so se lei l'ha ricevuto, l'ha letto e cosa ci potrebbe dire a riguardo. La ringrazio molto per aver visitato il Libano, che era un sogno per noi.
Bene, grazie. Un aspetto di questo viaggio che non è stato, diciamo, la causa principale, perché il viaggio stesso è nato pensando in questioni ecumeniche, con il tema di Nicea, l'incontro con i patriarchi, quelli cattolici, quelli ortodossi, e cercando unità nella Chiesa. Ma infatti durante questo viaggio ho avuto anche incontri personali con rappresentanti di diversi gruppi che rappresentano in realtà autorità politiche, persone o gruppi che hanno anche qualcosa da vedere con i conflitti interni o anche internazionali nella regione. Il nostro lavoro principalmente non è una cosa pubblica che dichiariamo per le strade, è un po' dietro le, come si dice, le quinte, una cosa che infatti già abbiamo fatto e continueremo a fare per cercare di, diciamo, convincere le parti a lasciare le armi e la violenza e venire insieme al tavolo di dialogo, a cercare risposte e soluzioni che non sono violente ma che possono essere più efficaci e meglio per il popolo. Se l'ho visto, evidentemente c'è da parte della Chiesa la proposta che lasciano le armi e che cerchiamo il dialogo, però più di questo preferisco non commentare in questo contesto.
Un'altra domanda è da parte di Cindy Wooten di CNS, Catholic News Service.
Holy Father, you said a couple months ago that there is a learning curve to being Pope. Can you, and when you arrived at Harissa yesterday with the warm welcome, it looked like you said, wow. Can you tell us sort of what you're learning? What's the most difficult thing to learn for you in being Pope? And you haven't told us anything either about what it felt like in the conclave when kind of it became clear what was happening. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my first comment would be that just a year or two ago, I too thought about retiring someday. You've received that gift, apparently. Some of us will continue to work. The conclave itself, I believe very strictly about the secret of the conclave, even though I know there have been public interviews where some things were revealed. I said to a reporter the day before I was elected, she caught me on the street. I was going to lunch across the street at the Augustinians, and she said, well, what do you think? You've become one of the candidates. And I simply said, everything is in the hands of God. And I believe that profoundly. One of you, there's a German journalist on here who said to me the other day, tell me one book besides St. Augustine that we could read to understand who Prevost is. And there's several I've thought of, but one of them is a book called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's a very simple book by someone who doesn't even give his last name, Brother Lawrence. Read it many years ago. But it describes, if you will, a type of prayer and spirituality where one simply gives his life to the Lord and allows the Lord to lead. And if you want to know something about me, that's been my spirituality for many years. In the midst of great challenges, living in Peru during years of terrorism, being called to service in places where I never thought I would be called to serve to, I trust in God, and that message is something that I share with all people. So what was it like? I resigned myself to the fact when I saw how things were going that I said this could be a reality. I took a deep breath. I said, here we go, Lord. You're in charge, and you lead the way. I don't know that I said wow last night in the sense my face is very expressive, but I'm oftentimes amused by how the journalists interpret my face. Serious. I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes I get, like really great ideas from all of you because you think you can read my mind or my face. And it's not, you're not always correct. But, I mean, I was at the Jubilee for Youth where there were over 1 million young people there. Last night was a small crowd. It's always marvelous to me. I mean, I think to myself, these people are here because they want to see the Pope. But I say to myself, they're here because they want to see Jesus Christ. And they want to see a messenger of peace, in this case in particular. So to just listen to their enthusiasm and to hear their response to that message is something that I think that enthusiasm is awe-inspiring. And I just hope I never get tired of appreciating everything that all these young people are showing.
Grazie Santità. La prossima domanda viene da Gian Guido Vecchio del Corriere della Sera.
Santità, buongiorno. Sono ore di grande tensione tra la NATO e la Russia. Si parla di guerra ibrida, prospettive di cyberattacchi e cose del genere. Ecco, lei vede il rischio di un'escalation, cioè di un conflitto portato avanti con nuovi mezzi, come denunciato dai vertici NATO, e in questo clima ci può essere una trattativa per una pace giusta senza l'Europa, che è stata in questi mesi sistematicamente esclusa dall'amministrazione americana?
Questo è un tema evidentemente importante per la pace nel mondo, però dove la Santa Sede non ha una partecipazione diretta perché non siamo membri né della NATO in tutti i dialoghi finora, anche se di nuovo tante volte abbiamo chiesto, diciamo, cessate il fuoco, dialogo e non guerra. È una guerra con tanti aspetti adesso, anche con l'aumento di armi, tutta la produzione che c'è, ciberattacchi, energia, adesso che viene l'inverno anche c'è un tema molto serio lì. È evidente che da una parte il Presidente degli Stati Uniti pensa che possa promuovere un piano di pace che vorrebbe fare e che almeno in un primo momento è stato senza Europa. Però la presenza di Europa infatti è importante e quella prima proposta è stata modificata anche per quello che Europa stava dicendo. Specificamente penso che il ruolo d'Italia potrebbe essere molto importante precisamente per, diciamo, culturalmente, storicamente, la capacità che ha l'Italia di essere intermediaria in mezzo a un conflitto che esiste fra diverse parti, anche Ucraina, Russia, evidentemente, Stati Uniti. In questo senso io potrei suggerire che la Santa Sede possa anche incoraggiare questo tipo di mediazione e che cerchiamo insieme una soluzione che veramente potrebbe offrire pace, una giusta pace, in questo caso in Ucraina. Grazie.
Grazie Santità. La prossima domanda è di Elisabetta Piquet di La Nación. Anche lei è qua davanti.
Gracias, Santo Padre, por este primer viaje internacional, ante todo. Después, bueno, la bandera del Líbano tiene los mismos colores de la bandera del Perú. Es una señal, se va a hacer este viaje a América Latina, teóricamente en la segunda mitad del año próximo, junto a Argentina y Uruguay, que quedaron pendientes. No, fuera de broma, queríamos preguntarle qué viajes está preparando para el año que viene realmente. Y después, hablando de América Latina, está preocupando muchísimo, hay muchísima tensión por lo que está pasando en Venezuela. Hay un ultimátum del presidente Trump a Maduro para que se vaya, para que deje el poder, y una amenaza a derrocarlo con una operación militar. Queríamos preguntarle qué piensa al respecto. Gracias.
In quanto ai viaggi, sicuro non c'è niente. Spero realizzare un viaggio in Africa, sarebbe possibilmente il seguente viaggio, per confermare Africa. Personalmente spero andare in Algeria per visitare i luoghi della vita di Sant'Agostino, ma anche per continuare il discorso di dialogo e costruzione di ponti fra il mondo cristiano e il mondo musulmano, diciamo. Già nel passato, in un'altra veste, ho avuto opportunità per parlare proprio di questo tema e interessantemente la figura di Sant'Agostino aiuta molto come ponte perché in Algeria è molto rispettato come figlio della patria. Quello è uno. Qualche altro paese stiamo lavorando. Evidentemente mi piacerebbe tanto visitare America Latina, Argentina, Uruguay, che stanno aspettando una visita del Papa. Perù penso che mi riceveranno anche e allora se vado in Perù tanti paesi vicini, però ancora il proyecto no está definido. Entonces, sobre Venezuela, 26 o 27 estamos viendo.
Gracias.
Sobre Venezuela, a nivel de la conferencia episcopal, con el nuncio, estamos buscando maneras para calmar la situación, buscar sobre todo el bien del pueblo, porque tantas veces quien sufre en estas situaciones es el pueblo, no son las autoridades. Las voces que vienen de Estados Unidos cambian con cierta frecuencia a veces. Hay que ver. Por un lado, parece que ha habido una conversación por teléfono de los dos presidentes. Al otro lado, hay ese peligro, esa posibilidad de que haya alguna actividad, alguna operación, incluso invadiendo el territorio de Venezuela. Yo no sé más. Yo de nuevo creo que es, digamos, mejor buscar maneras de diálogo, quizás presión, incluso presión económica, pero buscando otra manera para cambiar si es lo que decidan hacer en Estados Unidos.
Grazie Elisabetta, grazie Santità. E l'altra domanda viene da Michael Cor de La Croix.
Hello, Your Holiness. Thank you for this very interesting trip. You just talk about continue to build bridge between different worlds, and I like to ask, some Catholics in Europe believe that Islam is a threat to a Christian identity of the West. Are they right, and what would you say to them?
All of the conversations that I had during my time both in Turkey and in Lebanon, including with many Muslims, were precisely concentrated on the topic of peace and respect for people of different religions. I know that, as a matter of fact, that has not always been the case. I know that in Europe there are many times fears that are present but oftentimes generated by people who are against immigration and trying to keep out people who may be from another country, another religion, another race. And in that sense, I would say that we all need to work together. One of the values of this trip is precisely to raise the world's attention to the possibility that dialogue and friendship between Muslims and Christians is possible. I think one of the great lessons that Lebanon can teach to the world is precisely showing a land where Islam, Christianity are both present and are respected, and that there is a possibility to live together, to be friends. Stories, testimony, witnesses that we heard even in the past 2 days of people helping each other, Christians with Muslims, both of whom had their villages destroyed, for example, of saying we can come together and work together. I think those are lessons that would be important also that we heard in Europe or North America, that we should perhaps be a little less fearful and look for ways of promoting authentic dialogue and respect. Trees of Lebanon.
La prossima domanda viene dalla giornalista dell'ARD, Giordana.
Santo Padre, la Chiesa in Libano, dovevo chiedere in inglese, sorry. So, the church in Lebanon is supported also by the German church. There are, for example, some German aid agencies very active in Lebanon. So from that point of view, it is important that the German church has to be strong. And you probably know that there is a synodal way, we call it synodaler Weg, a process of change in the German church going on. Do you think this process can be a way to strengthen the church in Germany, or is it the other way around, and why?
The synodal way is not unique to Germany. The whole church has celebrated a synod and synodality over the past several years. There are some great similarities, but there are also some marked differences between how the synodal Weg in Germany has been carried forward and how it may well continue in the universal church. On the one hand, I would say there is room certainly for respect for inculturation. The fact that in one place synodality is lived in a certain way and in another place is lived differently does not mean that there will be rupture or a fracture. I think that's very important to remember. At the same time, I'm aware that many Catholics in Germany believe that certain aspects of the synodal way that has been celebrated in Germany up until now do not represent their own hope for the church or their own way of living church. So there's need for further dialogue and listening within Germany itself so that no one's voice is excluded, so that the voice of those who are more powerful does not silence or stifle the voice of those who might also be very numerous but don't have a place to speak up and to allow their own voices and own expression of church participation to be listened to. At the same time, as you know, I'm sure, the German group of German bishops has been meeting through the past couple of years with a group of the cardinals from the Roman Curia, and there's an ongoing process there as well to try and make sure that the German synodal way does not, if you will, break away from what needs to be considered as the pathway of the universal church. I'm sure that will continue. I suspect there will be some adjustments made on both sides in Germany, but I'm certainly hopeful that things will work out positively.
Grazie Santità, grazie Anne. E l'ultima domanda, Santità, è di Rita Al-Munaye di Sat7, un'altra giornalista che viene dall'area del Libano.
We are 4 different Christian channels broadcasting in the Middle East and North Africa, 2 in Arabic, 1 in Farsi, and 1 in Turkish. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving a time for the Lebanese people. I am myself a child of war, and I know how much it means to have a hug from Your Holiness, a tap on the shoulder, and saying everything is going to be okay. And what struck me is your motto, Your Holiness. Your motto, it says in the one, we are one. This motto speaks of building bridges between different Christian denominations, between religion, and also across neighbors that sometimes can be a bit difficult. So my question is, from your own perspective, what unique gift does the church in the Middle East, with all its tears and wounds and challenges and past history, can give the church in the West and the world?
Okay. Let me preface my response by saying that today, people who grew up in a very individualistic society, young people who passed a very significant amount of time during the pandemic because of COVID, and whose personal relationships are oftentimes very isolated in reality because they're only through computer screens or smartphones. They ask sometimes, why should we want to be one? I'm an individual and I don't care about others. And I think there's a very important message here to say to all people that unity, friendship, human relationships, communion are extremely important and extremely valuable. if for no other reason than the example you mentioned about someone who has lived through war or has suffered and is in pain, what an embrace can mean to them. What that human, very human, real, healthy expression of personal care can do to heal the hearts of someone else. On a personal level, that can become, if you will, a common level, a community level that unites all of us and helps us understand that respect for one another goes far beyond you keep your distance, I'll stay here and you stay there, and we'll have no interaction. But it means building up relationships that will enrich all people. With that message, certainly my motto is primarily because of Christ. In Ilo is in Christ, who is one, we are all one. But it's not defined, if you will, only for Christians. And as a matter of fact, is an invitation to all of us and to others to say, the more we can promote authentic unity and understanding, respect, and human relationships of friendship and dialogue in the world, the greater possibility there is that we will put aside the arms of war, that we will leave aside the distrust, the hatred, the animosity that has so often been built up, and that we'll find ways to come together and be able to promote authentic peace and justice throughout the world.
Grazie Santità, grazie per questa sua risposta e per queste sue risposte, e grazie per la sua disponibilità nel corso di questo viaggio.
Buon viaggio a tutti e grazie a voi.
Grazie.